I want you to stop for a moment and think of every movie franchise that follows the same character or characters for 5 or more films. I'm not talking about franchises that are adaptations like Harry Potter or ones that have a preconceived narrative like Star Wars. I'm strictly meaning franchises where each movie had to be greenlit on its own and has to come up with its own new story each time. Which ones come to mind? Pirates of the Caribbean? Fast and Furious? Indiana Jones, Rocky, Transformers? There are honestly a lot to choose from, but now I want you to think of what they all have in common. Aside from the Mission Impossible franchise, which has the luxury of a cinematic psychopath in Tom Cruise running the show, every one of these franchises objectively loses steam. They all start with movies that are critically acclaimed and do well at the box office, which obviously means they need a sequel. Usually the sequel is decent and makes good money, so even more sequels are made. But by the end, pretty much every one of these franchises ends with arguably its weakest film. And I wouldn't say that it's all the franchise's fault. Stretching movies out like that and keeping them interesting is a tough task. It's nearly impossible to create new and compelling arcs for characters we've spent multiple movies with, and it's really hard to put them in new situations that don't feel like a repeat of something we've seen before. All that to say, there's a new franchise entering the 5 film club: Toy Story. Saying that out loud and putting the Toy Story films with those other series still feels weird to me. I feel like every one of those franchises has a reputation as a bunch of blockbusters that only really care about money. There's no artistic value in it anymore. When Ghostface and Sidney Prescott or Michael Myers and Laurie Strode face off on the big screen, it doesn't matter what kind of vision the filmmakers have, the story will continue until it stops being financially profitable. The only reason I say all of that is because Toy Story still doesn't fit that vibe in my mind. In fact, Pixar as a whole feels like it's too good for that. This is a studio that has established itself as a creativity powerhouse, dabbling in a trend that feels so far beneath it, it's not even funny. And I think the point I'm trying to make is that Pixar is coming to a crossroads, a fork in the road that is going to force them to make a decision about what kind of studio they want to be going forward. Option A, they continue to release new original movies with fresh and creative concepts and compelling characters that resonate with both children and adults alike. When a good sequel idea presents itself, then that film can and should be made, sticking to the quality standard that the studio has set for itself. Sequels can be a nice accompaniment to Pixar's main deal, but they should never be the focus. And that's the way I feel like they've operated for a very long time. However, there's also option B, become just like everyone else. For every other studio, having multiple films be smash hits at both the box office and with critics is a dream come true. But where, for decades, Pixar has seen that and taken it as a sign to make more fresh and creative films, other studios would have seen that and made a dozen sequels to the few films that they found success with in the first place. There probably would have been a Monsters Inc. 2, a Finding Nemo 2, and an Incredibles 2, all before 2010 if we were dealing with someone like DreamWorks. Now, I'll give DreamWorks their flowers, they've made some phenomenal films, but they've also been pretty quick with the trigger on turning those great movies into franchises. Pixar has never been that way. As of 2026, they've been making movies for 31 years, beginning back in 1995 with the original Toy Story. In the first 14 years leading up to the year 2010, Pixar only made one sequel. And in the 17 years following that, they made not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but 10. 10 of the 21 films released in these past 17 years have been sequels, which is pretty much exactly half. So for every one original movie that Pixar releases, there's been a sequel. And I'm not even counting Coco 2, Incredibles 3, and the Monsters Inc. sequel, all of which have been announced to be coming out in the future. That's not the formula that garnered Pixar its reputation, and frankly, it seems a little bit out of character. Now that being said, have the sequels been really good for the most part? I'd say yes, but there's no denying the greater trend. And now, with the decision to make Toy Story into a 5-film franchise, they're stepping into uncharted territory. But let's go a little bit deeper. Why does Toy Story 5 feel so weird? I think one of the most repeated opinions in all of movie culture overall is that Toy Story 3 was the perfect end for the franchise. And the reason that opinion is so common is because it's true. Not only was Toy Story 3 pretty much a perfect movie, but it gave all of our favorite characters an ending that felt both necessary and emotionally satisfying. And when it comes to Toy Story 4, I understand why a lot of people don't think it's on the level of the others. Personally, I really enjoy it, and I always have, but I can certainly see the argument that it's unnecessary. But here's the thing. I think even the most avid Toy Story 4 hater can admit that there is a decent reason for the film existing. Toy Story 3 was the end of Andy's story, but Toy Story 4 was the end of each of the Toy Stories. And even if you don't agree with that or still think it's unnecessary, there's no denying that it is a tangible argument that can be made. And I'm not sure I can say the same for Toy Story 5. Was there some dangling loose thread at the end of 4 that I missed? Was there some sort of setup that fell through the cracks when I watched it? Say what you will about Toy Story 3's ending, but Toy Story 4 is as concrete and closed book as it gets. I mean, holy crap, if that isn't the franchise being signed, sealed, and delivered, never to be touched again, then I don't know what is. So I think we're now dealing with the first time that Pixar has made a movie for no discernible reason. And when you're in a situation like that, it's hard to deny the fact that this movie is essentially guaranteed $1 billion at the box office. So, is it a cash grab? Maybe, I honestly can't tell. But it's definitely the first Pixar movie that I can't definitively say no to. And man, when it comes to the movie itself, there are some things I'm skeptical of. Finding a way to force Woody back into the story with the original characters, deciding to focus on Jessie, repeating the multiple buzzes shtick that we saw in Toy Story 2, I mean, these are big risks. And even though I can see a world where all of them end up paying off in one way or another, they are still inherently risky concepts. I just feel like it hasn't exactly done the work to prove that it is a movie worth making. But now it's time for the most important word in this entire video. However I may feel about it, however it may look, this is still Pixar we're talking about at the end of the day. If someone is going to find a way to prove me wrong, it's them. And after all, I said that they're at a crossroads when it comes to what they want to be as a studio going forward. And a crossroad has two sides. I already broke down what the bad side looks like, but the good side looks like this. Toy Story 5 is phenomenal. And honestly, based on some of the early reactions over the last couple of days, it seems like that may be the reality we're in. Maybe Pixar found a way to make this movie justifiable. And honestly, the concept of toys having to fight against technology for the attention of a kid, that's genuinely one of the more brilliant ideas I've heard for a movie in a while, and I have faith in Pixar to execute it. A movie like this in a time like this has the opportunity to actually have a real impact. It fits that Pixar formula I was talking about, resonating with both kids and adults alike. These parents that grew up playing with toys are going to go to the theaters and agree with the film's messaging, and the kids watching it might actually feel the inclination to play with their toys instead of their iPads again. On top of that, I feel like there seems to be a level of care put into this film that I wouldn't expect out of a soulless cash grab. You bring back the entire original cast, including Tom Hanks, who I respect enough as an actor to think that he probably wouldn't have come back for a fifth film if he didn't feel like it was worth making. Plus, Andrew Stanton is directing, and he's one of Pixar's most consistently high-quality directors. Not only did he write Toy Story 1, 2, and 4, but he's also directed some of Pixar's classics like WALL-E and Finding Nemo. This is someone that understands what works for Pixar and knows the ins and outs of the franchise and these characters better than almost anybody. In fact, I saw a quote the other day that when he was asked about why he decided to direct the movie, he said, "Because somebody else might mess it up," in kind words. That doesn't sound like someone who signed on for an extra paycheck. It sounds like a filmmaker who wants to protect the legacy of our franchise he helped build and decided to step in and take matters into his own hands to make sure that happened. But no matter how much I talk about what the film could be, it's still up to Pixar to decide what it is. Will it be the studio that continues to deliver the highest quality animated content in the game, or will it give in to the financial side of things and crank out sequels that have no business being made? That's the crossroad I'm trying to break down, and it's a decision that Pixar will have to make on its own. I have no clue how good Toy Story 5 will be. I have hopes, I have dreams for how good it will be, but I genuinely have no clue which side of the argument I just laid out it will end up falling on. I just don't know. It could be terrible. It's unlikely, but it could. It could be great. Honestly, up until I saw the first reactions for the film, I thought that might be unlikely too. But at the end of the day, no matter what it is, It will undoubtedly give us a glimpse into the future of the Pixar studio and tell us which side of the fork in the road they decide to go down. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe if you want more videos like this. With that being said, thanks again so much for watching, and God bless.